exploration of space, like the exploration of life, if you will, is a risk. We got to be willing to take it.
I'm not afraid to go up into space. I'm really looking forward to it. It's something I've wanted to do all my life.
Could this one moment in shuttle history throw the future of the entire space program into question? What happens now that Columbia and its crew are gone? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Back Live. I'm Marcel Neville. In the aftermath of the Columbia tragedy, there is tremendous sympathy for the families of the astronauts and for all of those at NASA who are mourning their colleagues while searching for answers and wondering about the future of the space program. We've lined up the experts so you can get some of your questions answered today. Questions like, what went wrong and could it have been prevented? And we're going to start now with CNN space correspondent Miles O'Brien, who has been covering this accident since it happened. And Miles is joining us from the Johnson Space Center in Texas with the latest word from NASA. Miles?
Arthel, we heard from folks involved in this investigation, NASA, specifically headquarters. We heard from the head of human space flight. We heard from one of the men in charge of quality and, safety assurance for shuttle missions. And more than anything, what they were trying to do today was give the public a sense that this was a full and comprehensive investigation, that it was well organized, that there was good consultation between all these federal agencies, kind of an alphabet soup that's involved in all of this, and that it was moving on in an orderly way. And the reason that's significant to point out is that 17 years ago, after Challenger, it was anything but that. It was really disorganized. There was mayhem. There was a sense that NASA was stonewalling, was hiding something. We're getting the sense of a very public investigation, as one of the NASA people said earlier, perhaps the most public investigation of an accident of this nature, not that there's been an accident of just of this nature, but of an accident ever. And so that's good news. We're going to be able to see this, and all of us as citizens of this country can make our own determination if we feel that putting human beings in space shuttles in the future is worth a risk. Just to give you a sense of where the investigation is right now, still awfully early, and we really want to resist getting too far out on the limb of speculation. But we do know this: during the last 5-6 minutes of Columbia's flight, there was a tremendous amount of heat buildup indicated in sensors all along the left side, in the rear flap called the elevon, in the left wheel well here, and in the left fuselage. As that was happening simultaneously, for some reason, that orbiter wanted to go to the left, indicating there was some kind of drag going on here. It was trying to compensate by tilting the wings back to the right. All of that is consistent with something going wrong with this heat shield under here. Some of the 27,000 ceramic tiles that are there to protect the aluminum orbiter from the 3,000-degree heat of re-entry. Aluminum can withstand perhaps up to about 350 degrees. So you really have to have those ceramic tiles in place in order to protect the orbiter as it comes in. The question is, how did those tiles, if that is the case, how did those tiles come loose or become knocked off? There is a lot of focus on what happened 80 seconds after the launch of Columbia. We know a piece of debris fell off the external fuel tank that is attached to the orbiter at that time, struck the bottom surface of the left wing. Was that a coincidence? Or is it possible this is a complete red herring? Or is that the smoking gun? Way too early to connect the dots on that, but we can tell you right now, that event is being looked at very closely right now. Arthel?
And Miles, everybody's wondering if, in fact, the crew had any idea that there was a potential problem. Could they have done something? I know they had to have special training, which they did not, to go on to the International Space Station, and also special gear, which they did not have. If you could talk about that for us.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that the engineers knew about that piece of debris hitting the bottom of the wing, and that was not unusual to see debris coming off that external tank. As a matter of fact, from the absolute first mission of Columbia back in 1981, they've seen this happen. Foam and ice knocking off that tank as it goes uphill, as they say, causing superficial damage to those tiles. So based on that body of knowledge, they looked at this latest one, sort of ran it through the analysis that they could give it. And bear in mind, all they're doing is looking at pictures. It is not quantitative analysis, it's qualitative. It's a fair amount of supposition, looking at some good camera work. And through all of that, they determined that this was probably just like they had seen before, which is to say damage, which will probably require some attention after landing, but nothing that would cause the loss of the vehicle and crew. Now, the next step is what you referred to. If they had determined that there were so many tiles that were knocked off, or there was something critical there that would have caused that kind of a failure, they had absolutely zero options with a crew in orbit. There is no such thing as a tile repair kit. Each of these tiles is unique, 27,000 of them. Can't carry 27,000 spares into space, and it would be very hazardous to attempt to try to attach them. Really impossible to do that in space. So they did not know for sure, and secondarily, if they knew, they had few options.
Miles, could they have devised different re-entry paths?
Well, we asked that question yesterday. Could they have possibly tilted it down in a different way, tilted it up? You know, this gets kind of complicated. You have to think of it as skipping a stone on the lake. You know, if you skip it a little too flat, it may skim too far, and eventually it might not even skip off and continue onward. If you go in too deep, there's a big splash, and that would imply with the shuttle that it would come in too hot. Somewhere in there is kind of the sweet spot, and what NASA tells us is that they already do fly that sweet spot because they're thinking of reusing that vehicle. Could there have been a special re-entry? It's unlikely they could have come up with anything better than what they did.
Okay, Miles O'Brien, thank you so much for bringing us all the information out of NASA. Listen, we're going to go to break right now, but as we do, we want to remember the Space Shuttle Columbia's astronauts.